I was screaming at the top of my lungs, begging them not to do it, but my lips weren't moving. I was frozen in a prison of my own flesh, trapped with locked-in syndrome, staring up at the fluorescent lights of the ICU. Dr. Evans was pleading with my mother, Constance. "Mrs. Miller, there's a private neuro-rehab center in Boston. It's expensive, $150,000 up front, but it's Vivian's only chance to walk again. If we send her to the state facility, she will likely never recover." Constance didn't even hesitate. She checked her watch and said, "I'm 64 years old, doctor. That money is my retirement. I'm not throwing my future away on a vegetable. Send her to the state hospice. My name is Vivian." I was a 39-year-old CFO who had just bought my mother a condo, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't her daughter anymore. I was just a financial liability she was writing off. Inside my frozen body, my heart shattered into a million pieces. But I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I could only listen as she signed the papers that would send me away to die. The transfer happened 2 days later. The state facility smelled like bleach and urine mixed together. It was a warehouse for the dying, not the living. The walls were yellow and peeling. The floors were sticky. The other patients looked like ghosts already. Before the orderlies wheeled me away, Constance leaned over my bed. I thought she was going to kiss my forehead one last time. Instead, she slid my diamond engagement ring off my paralyzed finger. The ring my late fiancé gave me before he died in a car crash 5 years ago. The only piece of him I had left. "You won't be needing this where you're going, sweetie," she whispered. "It's safer with me." I watched my life savings and my dignity walk out the door with her. She didn't look back. Not even once. The orderlies wheeled me down a long hallway. I could see the ceiling tiles passing by, one after another. Each one taking me further from hope. Further from the life I used to have. Time became a blur of agony. Days melted into weeks. Weeks melted into months. I was rotated once a day to prevent bedsores, but it didn't always work. I developed infections. I was fed through a tube. The food tasted like nothing because I couldn't taste anything. The isolation was maddening. I was surrounded by people, nurses, orderlies, other patients, but I was completely alone. Every time a nurse came in, I tried to scream with everything I had. I tried to move a finger, an eyelid, anything. Nothing worked. My body refused to obey. But my mind wasn't dying. It was sharpening like a knife. I spent every waking hour visualizing my mother's face. That cold expression when she chose her retirement over my life. I used that image to fuel my heart. I kept beating out of pure spite. I refused to die in that place. I refused to let her win. 6 months into my nightmare, something changed. A night nurse named Maria was changing my four. She was humming a song, something soft and Spanish. I focused all my energy on my right index finger. Move. 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 I pictured it in my mind, commanding it with everything I had. It twitched. Just a millimeter, but it moved. Maria dropped the 4 bag. It clattered to the floor. She leaned in close, her eyes wide with shock. "Did you do that on purpose?" she whispered. I did it again. Summoned every ounce of strength and made it twitch. She didn't call the doctor like she should have. Instead, she looked around nervously and whispered, "We have to be careful. They write people off in here. If they know you're improving, they might transfer you somewhere worse to free up the bed." That's when I understood. I wasn't just fighting my body. I was fighting a system that wanted me gone. Maria became my lifeline. She started coming during night shifts when fewer people were around. She brought in a tablet and held it in front of my face. I couldn't speak, but I could tap the screen, slowly, painfully, 1 letter at a time. The first thing I did was try to log into my bank accounts. Access denied. Account closed. My stomach dropped. Constance hadn't just saved her own money. She had used her power of attorney to liquidate everything I owned. My savings. My investment accounts. My retirement fund. All gone. Then I checked her social media. Big mistake. There she was, tan, smiling, holding a cocktail on a cruise ship. The Caribbean, from the looks of it. And on her finger, catching the sunlight, was my diamond ring. My engagement ring. She was wearing it like a trophy. Maria saw my face and squeezed my hand. "We're going to fix this," she promised. But I didn't know how. I was trapped. I needed a lawyer, but I couldn't let Constance know I was still in there. If she found out I was improving, she might do something to stop it. I used the tablet to email my old college roommate, Julian. He was a shark in corporate law. Made partner at 35. When Julian walked into my room 3 days later and saw me in that bed, he wept like a child. But when I slowly typed out what Constance did, the money, the ring, the state facility, he stopped crying. His face went hard. "We can't sue her yet," he said, pulling up a chair. "If we sue now, she gets notified. She could cut off the state funding out of spite, and you'd have nowhere to go. We have to play dead." I blinked twice. Our signal for yes. "Let her think she won," Julian continued. "Let her think you're never waking up. And when the time is right, we'll destroy her." For the first time in 6 months, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. It took 2 years. 2 long years of secret physical therapy that Maria smuggled in after hours. She brought in resistance bands. She helped me do tiny exercises that wouldn't be noticed. Slowly, I could move my arms. I could turn my head. I could slur words. It was hard. It was painful. But I was coming back. Julian found a loophole we could use. A forgotten trust fund from my late father that Constance didn't even know existed. She couldn't touch it because it was set up before their divorce. He used that money to move me to a private facility in Switzerland under a fake name, V. Morrison. The morning I left the state facility, the administrator called Constance to inform her. I listened on the other line, using a speaker Julian set up. Constance's voice was annoyed. "Is she dead?" The administrator paused. "No, Mrs. Miller. She's been discharged. Transferred to another facility." Constance clicked her tongue like she was irritated. "Well, don't send the bill to me." That was it. No relief. No questions about where I was going. Just don't send me the bill. Switzerland was brutal in a completely different way. The rehab center was high in the Alps. Clean. Professional. Expensive. I relearned how to walk. How to hold a fork without shaking. How to speak without slurring my words. Every push-up was agony. Every step felt impossible. My muscles had wasted away. My balance was gone. I fell constantly. But I had a mantra that kept me going. Get strong. Get rich. Get even. I said it every morning. I said it every night. The therapists thought I was incredibly motivated. They called me their miracle patient. They had no idea I was powered purely by revenge. For years after the stroke, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I was thinner. Harder. My face had changed from the weight loss and the years. I didn't look like Vivian Miller anymore. I looked like someone new. Someone dangerous. I looked like a predator. And I was ready to hunt. I returned to the US under the name V. Morrison. I couldn't go back to being a CFO publicly yet. Too many questions. Too much attention. Julian helped me set up a shell company called Nemesis Holdings. We started small, buying distressed debt from banks. We were good at it. Very good. We bought debts that other companies didn't want. Medical bills. Credit cards. Mortgages. And then we collected. Within 2 years, Nemesis Holdings was worth $12 million. We had leverage. We had power. And then Julian brought me a very interesting file. "You're going to want to see this," he said, sliding it across my desk. I opened it. Inside was information about a luxury retirement community in Florida. The kind of place with golf courses and tennis courts. The community was in financial trouble and selling off debt. And living in Unit 4B was Constance Miller. My mother. My target. I smiled. "Buy it all," I said. I sat in my glass-walled office, looking at the file for Unit 4B more carefully. Constance Miller. Age 70 now. 6 years had passed since she left me to rot. The file showed she was behind on her HOA fees. 3 months late. She'd burned through the stolen money faster than she thought. The cruise ships. The jewelry. The designer clothes I saw on her social media. It all added up. She was living on credit now. Her cards were maxed out. Her savings were gone. She was 1 bad month away from eviction. I signed the order with a pen that cost more than her monthly payment. Maximum penalties. Audit all residents. Immediate enforcement. I was now my mother's landlord. And I was not a forgiving landlord. Julian looked at me carefully. "You sure about this?" I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." He nodded. "Then let's make her life hell." Constance received a letter 1 week later. Her monthly fees were doubling due to management restructuring and deferred maintenance costs. I had a private investigator watching her. His name was Derek, former cop, very thorough. He called me the day she got the letter. She had a complete meltdown in the lobby, he reported. Screaming at the receptionist. Threw the letter at her. My receptionist. My employee. I made a note to give her a bonus. Derek continued, she was shouting about her rights. About how she's a long-time resident. Then she said something interesting. I leaned forward. "What?" She screamed, "Do you know who I am?" My daughter was a wealthy executive. Derek paused. Was. Past tense. I felt ice run through my veins. She actually thought I was dead. Or as good as dead. I was past tense to her. A memory she could use for sympathy. "Keep watching," I told Derek. "I want to know everything." 3 weeks later, Derek called me with news I wasn't expecting. "She's not just broke, V. She's sick." My hand tightened on the phone. "Sick how?" "She collapsed at the community bingo night. Ambulance came. They took her to Jacksonville Memorial." He paused. "I got a contact in the hospital. They ran tests. It's acute myeloid leukemia. Aggressive type." I sat back in my chair. Karma works in mysterious ways. "How bad?" I asked. "Bad. She needs treatment immediately. Chemo first, but eventually she'll need a bone marrow transplant or she's got maybe a year." I should have felt happy. I should have felt like justice was being served. But instead, I felt something else. Not pity. Not exactly. More like opportunity. "Keep me informed," I said. Every detail. Because I knew something the doctors would eventually figure out. Constance had no siblings. Her parents were long dead. Her only hope for a genetic match was a child. And she thought her only child was gone. Constance needed a bone marrow transplant within 6 months or the leukemia would kill her. I learned this from Derek's hospital contact. The doctors told her exactly what I knew they would. Your only hope is a genetic match from a close family member. Do you have any children? According to Derek, Constance's face went pale. Then she said something that made my blood boil. My daughter died in a hospice years ago. She actually said it. She believed her own lie because she never bothered to check. She never called the state facility. Never asked for updates. She just assumed I'd died and moved on with her life. The doctor expressed sympathy. They started searching the bone marrow registry for unrelated donors, but the chances were slim. Very slim. Constance left the hospital that day looking 20 years older. Derek sent me photos. She was frail, pale, scared. Good. Let her be scared. Let her feel helpless. Let her know what it's like. 2 months passed. Constance's condition got worse. The chemo wasn't working well. She was running out of time. Then the hospital social worker did something I was counting on. She did a background check on the deceased daughter. Standard procedure for potential donors. The social worker came into Constance's room with a confused expression. "Mrs. Miller," she said carefully. "There is no death certificate on file for Vivian Miller." Derek recorded the whole conversation from the hallway. I listened to it that night. Constance's voice went from confused to sharp. "What do you mean no death certificate?" "Your daughter was discharged from the state facility 6 years ago," the social worker explained. "Transferred to another facility. But there's no record of her death." I could hear the wheels turning in Constance's head. Not with love. Not with hope for my well-being. But with something else. Greed. She realized her spare parts were still out there somewhere. Her genetic match. Her salvation. Within 2 days, she'd hired a cheap private detective to find me. His name was Morris. And I made sure Morris found exactly what I wanted him to find. I let Morris track me to my office in Manhattan. I made it easy. I used credit cards under my real name. I showed up in a few photos at charity events. I left a trail. I was standing by the window of my corner office, wearing a $2,000 suit, holding a cane I sometimes needed on bad days. The view showed the entire city. Morris took photos from across the street. Then he reported back to Constance. She bought a plane ticket the same day. 1 hour later, my secretary buzzed me. "Ms. Morrison, there's a woman here demanding to see you. She says she's family." I smiled. "Send her in." Constance burst through my office door looking frail, pale, and absolutely terrified. She was wearing a wig. The chemo had taken her hair. She was thin. Sick. Desperate. She froze when she saw me. "Vivian?" I turned around slowly, letting her see my face. Letting the recognition hit her. "Hello, Mother." She rushed toward me like she was going to hug me. I went stiff but didn't push her away. That would come later. She started crying, huge, dramatic sobs. "I thought I lost you. The hospital said you were discharged, and I couldn't find you. I searched everywhere." It was a masterful performance. She completely ignored the fact that she'd left me in a facility she called a hospice. That she'd told people I was dead. Julian had coached me on this moment. Let her lie, he'd said. Let her dig the hole deeper. So I smiled. A cold, thin smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I survived, Mother. No thanks to the state facility you put me in." She flinched slightly but recovered quickly. "That place was supposed to be good. I was told it was the best option for your condition." Another lie. "Really?" I asked. Because I remember the doctor saying there was a private facility in Boston. For $150,000. Her face went pale. She remembered. She changed tactics immediately. Sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. Dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I did what I thought was best at the time," she said. "I was told you'd never recover. The doctor said it was hopeless." Lie. They said the private facility was experimental. That it probably wouldn't work. Another lie. I let her dig. Then she got to the real reason she was here. "Vivian, I'm sick. Very sick. She pulled off her wig to show me her bald head. I have leukemia. Aggressive. The doctors say my only chance is a bone marrow transplant. She reached for my hand across the desk. I let her take it. The same hand she'd stolen my ring from. The doctors say you're my only chance. After everything I sacrificed raising you, putting you through college, supporting your dreams, I know you'll do the right thing. The audacity of it took my breath away. She was rewriting history. Making herself the martyr. The sacrificing mother. I almost admired her nerve. I pretended to consider it. Pulled my hand back slowly. I don't know, Mother. My health is still fragile. The recovery was hard. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did still have weak days. The surgery to donate bone marrow, it's risky for someone with my history. She leaned forward desperately. Grabbed my hand again with both of hers. Please. I don't have anyone else. You're my only daughter. My only family. I let the silence stretch. Let her squirm. Let her beg with her eyes. Finally, I spoke. I'll do it. Relief flooded her face. She started crying again. But, I continued, we need to settle our finances first. Her tears stopped instantly. Her face went cautious. What do you mean? I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a file. A thick one. I slid it across to her. When I was in the coma, $400,000 vanished from my accounts. You had power of attorney over my finances. I watched her face carefully. She went pale. Very pale. That money was used for your care. I opened the file and turned it so she could see. Bank statements. Transfer records. Credit card bills. All highlighted in yellow. I have every invoice from the state facility, I said calmly. You spent exactly $3,000 on my care over 2 years. The state covered the rest. I flipped a page. You spent $47,000 on a kitchen renovation for your condo. The condo I bought you. Another page. You spent $23,000 on a cruise to the Caribbean. Another page. You spent $18,000 on jewelry. I looked up at her. Should I continue? She was shaking. I needed that money to live. I had expenses. So did I said. Medical expenses you didn't pay. Therapy I had to fund myself once I escaped that place. I closed the file. I need that money back if I'm going to undergo surgery to save your life. She started crying again. Real tears this time. I don't have the cash. It's gone. I nodded slowly. I know. But you have assets. I pulled out another set of papers. Julian had prepared them. You have a condo worth approximately $280,000. You have jewelry worth about $50,000. And you have my engagement ring that you stole. I slid the papers toward her. Sign everything over to me as repayment for the debt. Do that, and I'll sign the donor consent forms. She stared at the papers like they were a death sentence. In a way, they were. This is everything I have, she whispered. You're asking me to give up everything. You took everything from me, I replied. I'm just asking for what's mine. Plus interest. She looked up at me with hate in her eyes. Real, genuine hate. Good. Now she knew how it felt. If I do this, she said slowly, you'll save my life? If you sign those papers, I said, I will go to the hospital and begin the donor screening process. You have my word. It was her life or her lifestyle. She stared at those papers for 5 full minutes. Then she picked up the pen. Julian came in with a notary. We made sure everything was legal and airtight. The transfer of assets was documented as a settlement of pre-existing debt. Completely separate from any medical procedure. If she tried to sue later, she'd lose. She signed the deed to the condo. She signed over the title to her car. She opened her purse and pulled out a jewelry box with shaking hands. Inside was my engagement ring. My grandmother's pearl necklace. Other pieces she'd taken over the years. She slid the box across the desk. Her hand was trembling. "There," she said, and her voice was bitter. "You have everything now. Every single thing I owned." I opened the jewelry box and took out my ring. Put it back on my finger where it belonged. It felt right. "Now save me," she demanded. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was so different from the strong, confident woman who'd walked out of my ICU room. Life had beaten her down. Karma had found her. And I was about to finish the job. We went to the hospital the next day. I gave blood for the compatibility testing. The lab technician was cheerful and optimistic. "Family members are usually the best match," she said. "Especially parent and child." Constance squeezed my hand. I let her. 2 days later, the results came back. Dr. Patel walked into Constance's hospital room with a smile. "It's remarkable," he said. "You two are a 100% HLA match. 6 out of 6 markers. This is the best possible scenario." Constance actually smiled at me. A real smile. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd manipulated me perfectly. Given up some assets but saved her life. She was probably already planning how to guilt me into giving everything back after she recovered. Dr. Patel started explaining the procedure timeline. "We'll schedule the donation for next week. Vivian will need to come in for preoperative screening tomorrow." I nodded. Constance looked so relieved. So hopeful. She had no idea what was coming. The morning of the scheduled transplant, I walked into Constance's hospital room. She was in her gown, head shaved, looking fragile but hopeful. The nurses had already prepped her. She was ready. But I was fully dressed in street clothes. She noticed immediately. "Why aren't you in a gown?" she asked. "Why aren't you prepped?" Dr. Patel came in behind me, looking confused. "Ms. Miller, we're ready for you in or 3. We need to start your prep." I turned to him. "Doctor, before we proceed, you need to see my complete medical history from the state facility." I handed him a file. A thick one. He opened it, starting to read. His face went from confused to concerned to absolutely horrified. He looked up at me. Then at Constance. "Mrs. Miller," he said slowly. "We have a significant problem." Constance sat up. "What problem? What's wrong?" Dr. Patel's voice was shaky. "During Vivian's stay at the state facility, the facility you placed her in, she contracted cytomegalovirus. CMV. Dr. Patel continued, his voice getting more serious. "CMV is a common virus. Most healthy people fight it off. Vivian did. She's a carrier now, but it's dormant. It doesn't affect her at all." He turned to Constance. "But for someone in your condition, immunocompromised from the leukemia and the chemo, a bone marrow transplant from a CMV-positive donor would be catastrophic." Constance grabbed his arm. "What does that mean? Catastrophic how?" "It means the virus would activate in your weakened system immediately," he explained. "CMV pneumonia. Organ failure. We could try to treat it, but in your state, with your age, your weakened immune system." He trailed off. "How long?" she whispered. "How long would I have?" "Days. Maybe a week." The room went completely silent. Constance turned to look at me. The realization was dawning on her face. The cheap facility she chose to save her retirement money, the place that was dirty and understaffed, was the exact reason she couldn't be saved now. Karma wasn't just poetic. It was precise. "I'm willing to donate," I said softly, breaking the silence. "I want to save you, Mother. But the doctor says it's medically impossible." Dr. Patel nodded sadly. We'll keep searching the registry for other donors. There's still time. Maybe we'll find someone. But we all knew the truth. The chances were almost zero. Constance would die within a year. Maybe less. She stared at me. Really stared. And I stared back. She saw it in my eyes. The calculation. The planning. The revenge. You knew, she whispered. You knew about the virus. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She started screaming then. Not words. Just a primal sound of regret and horror and rage. Nurses came running. Dr. Patel tried to calm her down. But she kept screaming, looking at me with eyes that finally understood. I walked out of that hospital room, twisting my engagement ring on my finger. It caught the light from the window, sparkling. I had my money back. I had my health back. I had my justice. And she had exactly what she paid for. Nothing.